Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Dolan, founder of Exit. I'd like to open my remarks with a question. Does your thing iterate? Your culture, your values, the things that are most important to you, will they outlive you? But first, I'd like to tell you the story of how we built Exit into a network union. Exit is a fraternity and a mutual aid society that started in August of 2021. I and several of my friends had lost our jobs to Antifa doxing rings, but it wasn't just doxing. If you remember the political climate at the time, all sorts of ordinary people who weren't saying anything interesting on the internet were still losing their jobs. We realized that it wasn't just cancel culture, it wasn't just our W-2s. The healthcare system, the financial system, the supply chains, the schools, everything we depended on was in terminal decline and had become hostile to life. We saw that a very tight bottleneck was coming for the people and cultures that stayed inside those systems, and that we would need parallel institutions to make it through. So we started with one group call a week, which eventually became 12 accountability calls where we'd work together on various projects. As we built critical mass in a variety of cities, I would start getting on a plane once a month to hold a meetup with an unconference and a barbecue for the families. And here's where we are today. Today we have 220 full members and 520 paying subscribers. We have 31 member leaders who keep an eye on 6 or 7 guys in their region of the country. I've organized over 50 meetups in 19 cities, but in the cities where we have a lot of strength, like Austin, Salt Lake City, Dallas, Houston, Seattle, and DC, the group holds monthly member meetups without me. In network state circles, people often ask about the algorithm. How do you determine who's in and who's out? But we believe that that's not something you can solve with an algorithm, that it actually takes time to build the kind of trust that makes a community. And so we're always looking for projects that we can use to build trust and capacity among the group. We've done hundreds of them. Most of them are, just about building trust and capacity. They're hobbies. Some of the guys have started podcasts, things like that. But occasionally we'll have things that go in really interesting directions, and I'd like to showcase a few. One of our guys started an AI and machine learning boot camp, which has been great for him personally, but it's also allowed him to take 10 or 12 of our guys through a process where they went from entry-level manual labor type employment to being able to support a family from a laptop anywhere in the world. One of the guys crowdfunded a film through the group. Another, a doctor and a athletic trainer started a genetic health consultancy. One of our guys identified a huge, bloated, bureaucratic incumbent in the elder care health industry and was able to disrupt that. He was able to find his legal help, his CTO, his head of sales inside the group. And we also launched NATO Conference. And what all these projects have in common is they're about building sovereignty together. And I'd like to take a little time to talk about NATO Conference in particular. We got 125 people together in Austin to discuss demographic decline. Biology was our surprise closing speaker, and in April of 2024, Elon Musk posted my opening remarks on X with the headline, "If birth rates continue to plummet, human civilization will end." Every culture, every value system, every people on Earth is passing through a bottleneck tighter than the Black Death. There is no place with access to modern technology and modern memes that is reproducing itself. And that's why all these normal, basically apolitical family guys felt the need to build on the outside. Because if your thing can't iterate beyond your lifetime, it won't matter what else it accomplished. And there's 3 ways to iterate. You can have kids, which is genes, but the red tribe, who's sort of pursuing that strategy of having babies, is failing to iterate because they're having children but not grandchildren. They're losing their kids to hostile memes. The second way you can iterate is through memes, through conversion, which is the blue tribe model. The blue tribe is failing to iterate because just like you can run out of other people's money, eventually you run out of other people's kids. And there's an emerging gray tribe solution, which is, what if we just never die and then we don't have to worry about iterating? And that's Brian's wheelhouse, and I'll leave that to him. But I want to talk about the first 2. If you can build for grandchildren, then you've solved the problem of iterating. You're transmitting both your genes and your memes. And I was talking to one of my co-founders in NATO Conference about what's our KPI for Exit? How do we know if we're succeeding? He said, is it kids? I said, no, I think it's grandkids, which is like a terrible KPI because you don't know if it's working until 20 years later. But it's actually a pretty decent One Commandment. The One Commandment in the network state is not arbitrary. It's the difference between what we're all trying to build, which is a tribe, a people, and just a SaaS solution or a consumer product or an expensive party. because it binds people to something larger than themselves, something for which they will sacrifice and build, something beyond their own consumer interest. And this problem is actually as old as intentional communities themselves. It's actually not that hard to get like-minded friends together to play, especially if they're rich and unattached. It's really hard to get them, especially if they have families, to stay and build and sacrifice and iterate. And so, I have 6 kids. I'm kind of a red tribe guy, kind of come from that world. And so this question of why these communities don't iterate is extremely important to me. And as I've thought about it, I've realized that when I was a kid thinking about what I wanted to be when I grew up, the idea of sort of living in a cubicle, having that life, the life that my parents had lived, was not that appealing. That we don't have an aspirational culture for our children to initiate into. And so of course they say, well, I'm gonna go look for something else. And so the project of building for grandchildren is really a project of human cultivation. If we want our kids to want to perpetuate our culture, we have to live admirable and excellent lives. We have to surround ourselves with admirable and excellent people. You should marry someone you want your you should marry someone you want your kids to be like, because they will be. But if you want to know what your grandkids will be like, it's your tribe, the extended network that you raise your kids around. And that puts groups like us up against the hard limits of decentralized networking. You can have a remote job or a remote startup, but your kids can't have a remote campout. They can't go to a remote jiu-jitsu class. They can't have a remote first kiss. And so we have to build something together, and we've spent over a year getting together the resources, getting together developers and GCs, and figuring out how to plan it. And we're going to build a clubhouse centered on this question of human cultivation in the Austin area. So why Austin? We needed a values-aligned tech hub so that we could work and build there. We weren't interested in bugging out to the woods. But it needed to be in a safe jurisdiction with strong parental and property rights, which dramatically narrowed things down. But we're not natural expats. We have extended families, and our families have friends and commitments. We wanted to build in a place where we could have the optionality and prepare to relocate together if we needed to. So what's next for the group? We want to educate parents and children together. We found that the best way to connect parents is through their children, and we want to show our kids an example of self-cultivation. We're also setting up regional preparedness cooperatives. As infrastructure and security situations get dicier, we want our guys to be prepared where they are and equipped to lead in their communities. We're also setting up pop-up clubhouses in Salt Lake, Seattle, and Dallas, so that as we pilot this program in Austin, we can expand to other cities. And then we're building the Exit LLM directory. We call it ExitBot. We need a way to network at scale. And we can't do that by just putting everybody's information on a Google Doc. So we've created a double opt-in system where you can ask the bot natural language questions and have it return, here's 3 guys who are in software development, here's 3 tax attorneys, and you pick the one you want, and it just does a handshake and says, would you like to be put in touch with this person? So everybody agrees and everybody's secure. I want to personally thank Biology for supporting me and my friends and allowing me to speak. What I love about the network state is, as an umbrella, is that it allows people with compatible values but different priorities to learn from one another. We're really excited to check out Network School and try out the Blueprint Diet. We found some things that really work in human organization, and we'd love to share it with you. So you can follow us at blog.exitgroup.us. Thank you.